It's so good to see all of you, and I am really delighted that on a rainy, drizzly, kind of chilly, cold spring day like this, you showed up. And we have pretty good showing today, and I'm delighted for that. I was coming down in the rain, driving down the street, or Marcia drives, she doesn't let me drive, but coming on in, and I thought, gee, it wouldn't be surprised to me if a lot of people didn't show up, and I see people, anyway, it's good to have you all here. And this is I think it's the fourth in a series of talks that I've been giving on the idea of prosperity, wealth, happiness, success, and the spiritual life. And I've talked about a variety of things up until this particular time. And today, I want to talk about that almost unmentionable word to some people because it makes them very, very uncomfortable. And that's the word money. And, there's an old saying that I like very much that some of us preachers learned early on that goes, church is a place to comfort the afflicted and a place to afflict the comfortable. And one of the ways that is interpreted, that is afflicting the comfortable, is by talking about money, because immediately people begin to get a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit uneasy. They know that the next thing you know, the minister is going to be talking fundraising and going to get his hand in their pocket or the purse. And that's not really true. At least it's not for me. Although I have talked about fundraising before, and I have no difficulty in talking about that. But today I want to talk about kind of the idea of the truth about money, and money as a real spiritual idea in our lives. I remember one time there's so much sensitivity around this thing that I've had people get up and walk out the moment I begin to talk about money. I remember one time I started to say something about money, and a friend of mine got up and walked out of the church and later said to me, "That's all you ever talk about is money." And that was the first time I've ever talked about it. And this was way back in Tulsa, Oklahoma, when I first got into the ministry. And an interesting thing about it is this particular friend of mine, with whom I'm still in contact, about all she ever really thought about was money. So it's interesting how we project on others our own hang-ups, isn't it? Okay, set that all aside. And the reason I'm talking about money is because money is a real spiritual idea, and I, like many people, grew up with a lot of concepts around it. I was born during the Depression. And my dad worked all through the Depression. He had a steady job. He brought his money home. But there were tough times for us, really, really tough times. There were a few people in town that did very well. I mean, and I remember one time coming home, I was a little boy and approaching my mother, and I says, I just saw Dr. Wall drive by, and he had a brand new 1939 Lincoln convertible. They came out with the old Continental kit on the back with the wheel. 1939 was one of the first models, so this was probably around 1938. And I said, gee, I saw this car, and Mom, why can't we have a car like that? I just didn't quite understand the economics of the day. And she says, oh, Richard, he's rich. I said, why can't we be rich? He says, well, you don't really want to be rich. Rich people are never happy. There's somebody always trying to get their money away from them. And rich people, this was her rationalization to a little kid. It says, they're never happy. And I walked away from that and I thought about that. And it dawned on me shortly thereafter that I would rather be rich and unhappy, happy than rich and unhappy. You know what I mean? That somehow or another triggered an idea in my mind. But many of us, I think, have grown up with these misconceptions, haven't we, about this idea of money. Let's just say the word money. I want to make you uncomfortable. Money. Hey, you made me uncomfortable. That's good. I'm glad to hear that. Let's talk about it. What is money? Money is a medium of exchange. If you look it up, that's what it is. It is a vehicle that we use in order to be able to exchange our goods and services among each other. And it's easily transportable. It's the kind of thing that facilitates the circulation of our energy, our goods, our service, our goodwill, and everything in society. And yet we have a lot of stuff about it. Money represents energy. It is our energy. So my question to many of you who have a tendency to want to put it off out there and think about it as something a little tainted is, how much do you respect your own energy and activity? And it's a real serious question. And this is a real serious spiritual topic to consider, or idea to be considering here. Raymond Charles Barker, a great religious science minister some number of years ago, wrote a little book called Money is God in Action. Isn't that a neat title? And Jeff, I guess, has a bunch of them on order, but we don't have any in stock, do we? Well, you don't know. Okay. Yvonne may know. Whatever. I want to read something that Raymond Charles Barker says here. I have a couple of things to read, and I would read one a little bit later, but this one here in this little book, it's just a little booklet about so big, used to sell for about 50 cents, and I think it's $5 now. So talk about money multiplying. The older theologies have been telling us for as long as any of us can remember that money is a dangerous thing, that money is an evil thing, and that money is a sinful thing. That ring a bell with some of you? We don't believe that. But there are countless good people that do believe it. And I look at them in amazement. For while they believe that money is the root of all evil, which is not what Jesus said, yet they are forever bothering their employers for a raise. If you would believe that money is evil, then why do you work for it? Why use it? Merely go and live with some kind relatives and sponge off of them a while. That's a little bit of a play on his words here. And you know, that's the truth. When we really sit back and we take a look at it and we ask ourselves, what does this represent in our life? We begin to realize that we may have stuff around it. And by the way, in your bulletin this morning, then I'm not going to comment any more than what's on this little insert. In your bulletin is this insert called The Truth About Money. And it's not my words. I've taken this from a wonderful book by Margaret Shepard, a friend of mine, a religious science minister. And take those ideas and dwell on him. But he goes on then, Raymond Charles Barker, and he says this in another place. He said, the first step toward abundance is to love money. Ooh, oh, that is harsh, isn't it? That's tough. I see a little bit of grittiness in the smiles of some of the faces out there. Why? Because it is the means which God is using at the present instant to maintain a circulation in your world of economics. But it must be circulated. Therefore, watch out before damming it up, hemming it in, or putting a fence around it. What happens when we do that is that we cut ourselves off. We create a mental construct that is going to deny the goodness of it and its role in our economic life, as a result of which we hold it away from us. Money is a spiritual idea because it represents your energy, it represents your activity, and it is nothing more than that medium of exchange that I talked about a moment ago. There is a statement that talks about love and money, and that appears in the letter of Timothy to St. Paul, where he said, the love of money is the root of all evil. But you notice the distinction there, the love of money. And that's what we're talking about. The love of anything to which we get attached that obsesses us is going to, and anything, this is anything, not just money, but that is going to limit our experience to be able to live life in a fully functional way. And so I say, open yourself to the energy of the universe as it appears in cash, if you will, as well as other kinds of substance, and allow it to express in your life. That is natural. That is natural for you. You know what a syllogism is? It's, this is so, and this is so, therefore this must be so. It's a logical process. Here's a little syllogism. It goes, we love God. It's natural to love God, unless you need medication. We love God. God is everything. God is money. Therefore, we love money. Can you accept that? You see, it's natural to be able to love anything, but not exclusively, not in an attached way. This is what Paul is talking about when he said the love of money is the root of all evil. See, not in such a way that you are attached or you love anything to the exclusion of anything else, because that creates a separation between you and that. And did you realize that that kind of separation is the root of all? Sense of separation is the root of all addiction. Whenever we get obsessively, compulsively involved with and hold on to something to the degree that we are so attached that we no longer are able to interact with our surroundings, other people, and life itself, we're addicted. You may never have thought of addiction in those particular terms. But it's a good thing that I'm talking about. In that same little booklet, Money is God in Action, there is a quotation that comes from Reverend Dr. Harry Emerson Fosdick. Some of you may have heard of him. He was a preacher, a traditional Christian preacher from back early part of the last century. And his writings are still all over the place and a great inspiration. And he said this, and I love this. He said, a dollar is a miraculous thing. It is a man's personal energy reduced to portable form and endowed with powers the man himself does not possess. It can go where he can't go, speak languages he cannot speak, lift burdens he cannot touch with his fingers, save lives with which he cannot directly deal, so that a man busy all day downtown can at the same time be working in boys' clubs, hospitals, settlements, child care centers all over the city. Isn't that a wonderful revelation? And we know that, don't we? But do we really think about it? Does it really connect with us? Or have we created some kind of a separation, really, an encapsulation with the ideas around money and set it aside over here because it's a little bit awkward for us to think about it, to deal with it? It's an energy. It is your energy applied. It is your energy that is reduced, as Harry Emerson Fosdick says, to portable form. It's neither good nor bad. It's totally neutral. Remember Shakespeare, nothing is good or bad, but that thinking makes it so. Money is neither good or bad, but that you conceive some concept of it that is going to make it good or bad in your life. It's through our thinking that we can bring ourselves into a useful orientation relative to the activity that is possible with the expression of yourself through money, and to recognize that in others and become part of this circulatory process of life. Having money, or anything for that matter, folks, is a matter of consciousness. It is a state of consciousness. In the book of Proverbs, we have the statement where it says, a rich man's wealth is his strong city. And what do you think that means? Your wealth is your strong city. If your city is strong, then you have wealth. To turn that around a little bit, if your city, and what is your city? Your city is your whole consciousness. It's the mansion of your soul, if you will. It is the dwelling of your mind. This is your city. And when you are strong in this consciousness, then there is wealth in your life. And wealth, by the way, comes from a Anglo-Saxon word, I believe it's called halig, that literally means well-being, means whole, ultimately. So the wholeness exists in your consciousness, and that is the residence of wealth. I want to wrap this up by a couple of quotations that come out of the New Testament and the Old Testament. And the first one comes from the Gospel of Luke that says, no man, and this includes women, by the way, this is generic man, no one, having put his hand to the plow and looking back, is fit for the kingdom. Think about that. How often do we spend most of our time looking back? That is dredging up so much of that old stuff that we hold on to that limits our ability to be able to look forward to the possibilities of life. And the next one comes out of Job. Good old Job. Thou shalt decree a thing, and it shall be established unto thee. Does that sound familiar to you? Declare the truth of your being as one of wholeness, that is, wealth, which includes health, happiness, joy, abundance, and yes, even that slippery thing that many of us avoid that we call money. Thou shalt decree a thing, and it shall be established unto thee. And don't look back. Look only forward. That way you'll recognize the possibilities that God, through nature as life, has provided you and everyone else.